Hello again, Gooners. I'm doing this long intro because I'm scared I'm going to be cut. This machine of mine, or is it YouTube? I'm not too sure which. Keeps cutting me off. Cuts me off at the end and it cuts me off at the beginning. So I have to lengthen my vowel sounds, right? Anyway, you might be wondering why the number 12? It's not episode 12, it's episode 37, I believe. I'm not going to go into how paper thin our squad is because it doesn't look so paper thin after watching a couple of games and seeing some of our very talented youngsters in action against the likes of Southampton and Anderlecht. And a quiz question for you. Who had his shirt ripped off his back against Anderlecht in the Intercity Fairs Cup final? I actually thought it was just called the Fairs Cup by that time. But in this book that I've been reading, and I'm going to read an extract, so please don't go to sleep when I do. I'm going to read an extract, which makes me believe history says we're gonna be winning something pretty soon. History might say that. I'm not so sure I'm going to say that. I'm also, the reason why that Gamba number 12 is up there is because, one, I like that plastic bag. I think it's great, and why not decorate the room with it? And two, I'm gonna, if I remember, I'm gonna run through my predictions of last weekend, which would have won you some money at the bookies. I didn't actually put bets on myself, I confess, but I would have won around about £3.50 or something like that for if I put a £1 stake on 9 games. So not a huge plus, but better than a kick in the head, right? Anyway, let's move on to the games. The weekend games, I had to wait for quite a long while because Arsenal player said it was going to be up Sunday afternoon or PM, and I was waiting pretty much until the evening. Yeah, it certainly was PM, so I can't blame them for that. Missed Stuart Houston. I don't agree with his comments about Theo Walcott, but I'd like to see Stuart Houston back as soon as possible. Instead, we had Stephen Hughes summarising. Stephen Hughes did a reasonably good job. Sounded like Perry Groves light, if for me, not as good as Perry Groves, but obviously he's getting into this side of things. So wish him the best of luck. He was a good player. I enjoyed seeing him play for Arsenal, and well, it's just I don't think anyone's as good as Stuart Houston. Simple as that. Not as a pundit. No one. That's just my view. I don't agree with what he says, but I want him back. Okay, I'll say no more on that. But what I will say is, look at this mess. This mess was my... I don't want you to look at it. I'm quite embarrassed by it. This mess was how I predicted we were going to line up against, first of all, against Anderlecht. I looked at the team sheets and then I was pretty accurate, actually, with the Anderlecht game. So we've got Martinez in goal. He was wearing a number 13 shirt, not the number 59, which we expected. Jenkinson at right back. Boateng centre back with Mikel, somebody did a boo-boo there in the Arsenal player department, putting him down as Miguel, like San Miguel. I think they'd had too many San Miguels. But he was wearing the number 4 instead of 49. And Kieran Gibbs was the captain, playing left back, wearing number 28. Ahead of Jenkinson, on the right wing was Yanaris, who put in a reasonable shift, especially early on, I thought. Eastman and Lansbury in midfield, along with Eisfeld. I wasn't quite sure who was playing on the left. It seemed a little bit indisciplined. And of course, Watt was in there too. And I put him down as a striker, but in fact, he was more or less in midfield. So they were a bit all over the place. I wasn't absolutely incredibly impressed by that performance, even though we won that 45 minutes against Anderlecht by 1-0. Shamak was up front and very ineffective. Lucas Billar, the Argentinian international, was playing for Anderlecht, looked very composed and assured on the ball. Not sure he's what we need. He's a defensive midfielder, and most of his passes were short. If you looked at his stats, probably be amazingly good because he was passing to a teammate pretty much every time. But yeah, he kind of influenced the game, but I didn't think he did anything amazing. Looking at our team, who played well in that first 45 minutes, I think Martinez. I'd have to give Martinez credit. I thought what he had to do, he did it very well. He played better than Manoni. I'll come on to that later. So Martinez, I think a feather in his cap for that game. Yeah, he didn't have an awful lot to do, but what he did do, he did it. He did it in style, and he was very good on crosses. He's also Argentinian, of course. And Lansbury scored a good goal, set up by Jenkinson. They were both pleased, or Lansbury pleased to get on the score sheet. Jenkinson pleased to get an assist early on in the season. Um, Gibbs did okay. Mikel, mostly very good. So I'm unhappy that I think he should be in the first team squad, as I've mentioned before. The others, I wasn't overly impressed. Eastman did all right. Boateng, they were impressed with his size and the fact that he managed to hold his own against Anderlecht. But he didn't do an awful lot to impress me. But at the same time, he didn't do much wrong. As I said, Unaris early on was quite impressive for me. Faded a little bit. Icefeld seemed a bit out of his depth, unfortunately. But these guys are still young, so we can't write them off, not at all. Looking at the second game though, so we won that 1-0 thanks to Lansbury's goal. The second game against Southampton, another 45-minute game. Well, I got this spectacularly wrong, even though I had the team lineup. I couldn't guess who was playing where. But the Arsenal performance was much improved, I felt. Gervinho was kind of up front by himself. Anike was playing in midfield. I thought he was going to be up front, but no, he played in midfield. Alongside, who did he play alongside? Well, Eastman was still there from the previous game, as was Lansbury to start with. Coquelin came in wearing number 22. Santos was also in midfield. He was playing in front of Mead. Mead was wearing the number 3 shirt. Bartley on the left side of central defence and Giroud right side of central defence, and Ebesilio was playing right back. I think that covers just about everyone. There were a couple of substitutions. Anga came on. He played right back instead of Ebesilio, who could then move up the park to right side midfield. And Olsen was replaced. Olsen replaced Lansbury. Olsen struggled in the beginning, but put on a good show nearer the end of the game. And he took a penalty. Of course, it went to a penalty shootout because we drew the game 1-1. Gervinho scoring what you might describe as an individual goal. I thought it was a touch of luck about it, that it actually found the back of the net. Had a few chances. Even Shamak in the first game had one chance that I remember. He brought a save out of the goalkeeper. But Gervinho was described as the best player on the pitch. When I was watching Sky News on the day of the match, I'd hardly describe Gervinho as that. After analysing the 45 minutes, I thought Gervinho did okay when he got involved, which was rare. Santos also didn't get really very involved, but as always showed a bit of skill here and there. Who played well? Bartley. I'd have to say Bartley had a good game. Mannone looked a bit shaky to me. I like Mannone, but in this particular match he was shaky. Who else did well? Ebesilio did well, although he missed the penalty that decided the outcome of the match. Although we lifted a bit of silverware, we've got to be pleased about that. The Marcus Lieber Memorial Trophy is already in the trophy cabinet. Good news, I suppose. Coquelin, yeah, not great, did okay. And Eastman again, not bad, did okay. And Nike, not bad. A lot of not bad performances. Giroud was all right as well. I think shaky at times. But yeah, I think for me the man of the match for the second game, Bartley, followed by Ebesilio. I think those two were the better players. Gervinho, for scoring a goal, you'd have to put him third, I suppose. From the first game, I'd have to say, let's go back to it again. Martinez, followed by Mikel. I'm very reluctant to give a third man of the match from that game. Perhaps Yanaris or Eastman, I'm not sure. So I think we've had enough of those pre-season friendlies. The first game nearly sent me to sleep. It was played at a snail's pace. The second game was a little bit more exciting, but still, just one of those silly pre-season games that is just all about fitness more than anything. So moving swiftly on, or not so swiftly, because I've taken a long time over that, haven't I? I'm going to talk about a bit of history now. And this particular book, the official biography, The Compelling Story of an Amazing Club by Steve Stammers. Steve Stammers being a journalist I have a lot of admiration for. Used to work for the Evening Standard. Anyway, what was I going to say? Well, in answer to the question, if you listen very carefully, you will find the answer to the question that I was asking you earlier about who had his shirt ripped off his back when we won the Intercity Fairs Cup. Well, obviously Bertie Mee had taken charge of the club, and one thing that happened, one dramatic thing that happened, is we lost a League Cup final against Leeds, and then we had Swindon Town, and once again lost that. So a lot of disappointment, and it kind of takes me back. The way that game was lost sounds so similar to the way one of our recent so-called League Cup finals was lost, with a Szczesny-Koscielny mistake. This time it was against Swindon, third division Swindon, and just to quote from the book now, surely silverware was on its way to Highbury again, but as we've already seen, Arsenal's cup history is littered with disappointment, and the 15th of March 1969 must go down as one of the most humiliating in the club's history. The match was played on a pitch that had hosted the Horse of the Year show just a few days before. It was a bog, with a heavy, cloying surface that made slick football impossible, but even that cannot excuse a horrible performance from Arsenal. Scottish central defender Ian Ure and keeper Bob Wilson were responsible for the first goal, as a mix-up between the two allowed Roger Smart to nip between them and give Swindon the lead. See what I mean? Sounds like Koscielny and Szczesny all over again. And anyway, enough about that. What else can I say about it? Maybe I shouldn't say any more. No, I want to read some more. I hope you don't mind that. So Roger Smart scores the first goal. That lasted until the 86th minute, when Peter Downsborough in the Swindon goal attempted to hack the ball clear, but instead hammered it against Arsenal striker Bobby Gould. The ball rebounded goalwards, and a gleeful Gould was able to head it into an unguarded net. Gould was so emotional that he cried, and a huge wave of relief spread among the Arsenal fans as the match went into extra time. This was surely to be the moment. But Gould's tears were almost prescient. Don Rogers, Swindon's talented winger, put Swindon ahead as the first half of the added period came to an end, and then produced a thrusting run that took him from his own half into the Arsenal area before he scored the goal that won the cup. McClintock in particular was devastated. He had now been in 4 Wembley finals and had lost the lot. Of course, 2 of those Wembley finals were with Leicester. He had been sent a good luck telegram from Dom Revie ahead of the game, telling him to be first up the steps this time. What Revie had overlooked was that the Wembley tradition dictated that losers go up first for their medals. So there you have it. But that's nothing. That's nothing, of course, to what happened later. So Bertie Mee was in charge. He tried to convince the team that to take lessons from those defeats, and Bob McNabb was in agreement. I'm just trying to paraphrase some of this, and McNabb and the rest of the team, of course, didn't have long to wait. So the 4th place finish in the league meant that we qualified for the 1969-1970 Intercities Fairs Cup. We didn't do too well in the league, though, Charlie George making his debut that season. And there were promising youngsters waiting for their chances, including midfielder Eddie Kelly and striker Ray Kennedy. And then he goes on to say that Bertie Mee was almost in love with Kelly, calling him his midfield tank. And Kennedy, of course, played alongside Radford. I remember that combination quite clearly. So the season ended in good form. 5 wins from the last 8 games, but 12th spot. Pretty disappointing. We wouldn't want to see a repetition of that, of course. The domestic cups brought little joy. Blackpool beating us in a replay in the 3rd round of the cup. Everton did the same thing in the League Cup. So, in Europe, though, this is where it gets interesting. In Europe, went very well. See, this year was a little bit before my time. So that's why I'm enjoying this. Hope you are too. Arsenal's form in Europe was little short of magnificent in a campaign with few scares. But listen to this first result, it's not the best. Indeed, there were several superb performances. Northern Ireland's Glentoran were brushed aside with ease in the first round as Arsenal won 3-0 at Highbury. So that's not bad, is it? But then get this. True, they lost the second leg 1-0, but the outcome of the tie was never in doubt. Well, yeah, clearly they didn't bother turning up for the second game, because I think Northern Irish football is probably better now than it was back then. I could be mistaken, but that's my take on it. From then on, Arsenal proved themselves to be a genuine European force, as there followed convincing wins over Sporting Lisbon, Rouen, and Dinamo Bacău of Romania, which included a 7-1 hammering at Highbury. But it was in the semi-finals that Arsenal's real pedigree was to come through. They were paired with Ajax of Amsterdam, and this was the embryo of the team that was to make them the Dutch masters of Europe in the years to come. We're talking about Ajax there, of course. The first leg witnessed Arsenal at their irrepressible best, winning 3-0. Still to complete his first full season for the team, Charlie George was not a great one for reputations. The object of his attentions that night was Johan Cruyff. Already a rising star in world football, George gave the Dutchman the benefit of his best verbals throughout the game. Cruyff was not totally impressed. "That man, is he the chairman? He has so much to say for himself," said Cruyff afterwards. But George had also done his talking on the pitch, scoring twice. Ajax won the second leg 1-0, and Arsenal duly went through, so that was a close call. The final against the Belgian club, Belgian Giants, it says here, Anderlecht, was massive. So there's the connection, of course, with the recent trophy we've won. It was a 2-leg tie, the first leg to be played in Brussels. For the Belgians, the visit of a world-famous club like Arsenal was an honour. In order to make their guests welcome, Arsenal were asked to play in their famous home strip, so that Belgian fans could get to see it in the flesh, so to speak. Of course, we wore our famous home strip, famous new home strip against Anderlecht this time too. Although maybe some people were hoping we'd wear that infamous purple strip, the away strip. Anyway, and Arsenal's travelling supporters were given a warm welcome to and told to make themselves at home. But when the match started, Arsenal did not play as though they felt at home. At one stage, Anderlecht were 3-0 up, with 2 goals from Jan Mulder and cruising. 3 goals would have been a near impossible hurdle to overcome, but with just a few minutes left on the clock, Ray Kennedy scored with a powerful header. Where there was despair, there was now hope. Bob Wilson said, "We were still down in the dumps despite that late goal. Frank McClintock was cursing all over the place. He could see another loser's medal coming his way. Then he went for a bath and came out a different man." Must have been something they put in the bathwater. He must have sat there thinking about it and decided that Ray's goal had given us hope and that we could still win. He was a different man when he came back to get dressed. Maybe it was a different man. He was shouting at us all and telling us that the cup was still ours if we wanted it bad enough. That was a big, big moment. It changed the mood of everyone, and we came home confident that we could win. I mean, who in the dressing room now would say that kind of thing? Who would go in the bath and come out a different man in this current squad? I don't think there's anyone that would do that. Maybe Robin Van Persie. He would go in the bath and just not come back. Sorry, Robin. A comeback of some stature was needed in the second leg at Highbury, though. McClintock can clearly recall those 2 matches against Anderlecht to this day. Can I do a Scottish accent here? All right, I'm going to try. "They were a good team, no question, and in Jan Mulder and Paul Van Himpst, they had 2 special players, but I didn't fancy them at all at the back. They looked uncertain when we went at them, and their centre-backs looked poor in the air. I honestly believed we could do it, and I wanted to ensure the rest of the team believed it as well." Well, he did his job, obviously. The second leg was a memorable occasion. It was on Tuesday, the 28th of April 1970, a day when Frank McClintock emerged as a true leader and an inspiration in his new role in central defence. So well had he played that season that Scotland recalled him to international football after 3 years in the wilderness. But it was one of the new breed who struck first. Arsenal needed an early lift to boost their confidence, and they got it from Eddie Kelly, who rifled a shot into the Anderlecht net. Now Arsenal had genuine hope, and that was reflected in their high-tempo game. "Are you on drugs?" one Anderlecht player asked McClintock. The only drug they needed was adrenaline, and that was generated by ambition. Ambition to have their photographs up on the wall in Bertie Mee's staff room alongside a major trophy. Ambition to stop the talk of past glories at the club being rammed down their throats at every opportunity. I'm just wondering what other photographs were on Bertie Mee's wall, but I'm not going to think about that too much. Maybe it would be financials, because he was an accountant, right? He would fit in perfectly in the current climate of the club. McClintock had been spot on about the vulnerability in the air in the centre of Anderlecht's defence, and Radford exploited it to the full to head Arsenal further ahead. Driven by the unwelcome souvenirs of 2 successive League Cup final defeats at Wembley, Arsenal went for the kill. True, because of the strike by Kennedy in Brussels, Arsenal were level on aggregate and ahead on the away goals raw, but Anderlecht still had class, and there was a wake-up call when the ever dangerous Mulder hit the post. But it was a homegrown who finally secured victory. As Anderlecht became more adventurous, so space appeared and John Samuels capitalised on the gaps to score the third. Finally, 17 years after the trophy cabinet was last opened, it had to be opened again to take in the Intercities Fairs Cup. The long wait for silverware was over for Arsenal and for Frank McClintock. So here comes the answer to the question that I posed you earlier. Just wait for it. Delirium, but it has to be stressed, good-hearted delirium provoked by euphoria, broke out at the end of the match as thousands of joyous fans invaded the pitch and mobbed the players. To this day, Charlie George can't pinpoint what happened to his shirt as it was ripped from his back. So, there you have it. Charlie George was the answer to that question. So just before I go, I'm going to do a quick roundup of what I predicted for the J-League. And guess what? I got 5 out of 9 right. Not bad at all. You can see my predictions, or perhaps you can't. For the instead of saying hard of hearing, we should say hard of seeing. I'm a bit hard of seeing sometimes, so please don't take it personally. Right, Shimizu against Kashima Reysol. I watched some of this game. And very exciting it was too. A lot of goals in it. It was an away win, which I predicted. Kashima coming out on top. I think it was 8 goals in the end. I was beginning to lose count. Anyway, 8-goal thriller. They won 5-3, I believe. Anyway, an away win would net you £1.40 if you put a £1 bet on. Next game I got wrong because I put an away win. Vissel I expected to win at Omiya Ardija. They drew it, and so that would result in losing £1. And then Alberex against Urawa Reds. That was a draw too. I put an away win. It's got that wrong. Jubilo Iwata got that right, but everyone knew that was going to be a home win against Consadole Sapporo, who make good beer but don't make good football for the moment. In fact, they're bottom of the J-League, playing really badly. Nagoya Grampus against Vegalta Sendai. I got it right. I said it would be a draw, and it was. Goalless. I'll watch some of that. So that would have brought us in money, so I'm up again. Gamba Osaka against Yokohama F Marinos. I predicted an away win because Gamba have been terrible at home this season. Sorry about that, Gamba fans. So that would have brought in money as well, as would Cerezo Osaka against Kashima Antlers. Another away win brings in money, so I'm on about over £5 now for a £1 stake on all those games. But then I'll lose the final 2 games. Sanfrecce Hiroshima against Kawasaki Frontale. I put down a draw. It was a home win, as was Sagan Tosu against Tokyo, another home win. So got that wrong too. So in the end, I come up £3.27 in credit. So that's all for this particular episode. Sorry there was no transfer news, but I might come back later on to give you some of that if you're up for it, or if I'm up for it, because it's all about me, right? Well, I'm the one doing this thing, right? I'm sorry. I'm trying to take your thoughts and comments in mind and trying to deliver what you want. So if you let me know in the comment section, I will do my best to what can I say? To cater to your tastes, in a sort of lasagna friendly kind of way. We love lasagna, don't we? After the havoc it wreaked on a certain team, which I'm not going to go into now because I've already got very long-winded in this particular episode. So until the next time, up the Gooners!